There's RL.
Here,
Marine.
Funny guy, RL. Funny guy.
Matt.
Right there.
Right there.
And Bill.
Take it out, Marie.
No, it's something.
No, it's not hanging.
Marine in the pan.
I was making sure that that's what he wanted.
Marie, just take it down. Take it out of the way. Right there. There. That's it.
Oh my God! You got the boys in there.
Blind leading the blind.
Right a little bit.
There you go.
Perfect.
That was steep on it. It would.
The river scene looks good there, doesn't it?
Hang that painting up.
Okay.
And we've done
Up with the painting.
Ready?
Except for the smoke.
it. Except for the smoke.
That's the best thing in the world. That's the new one. Ours inside, there's no eyes on it.
Got it?
Oh, it took them like, 10 years. to
Really?
figure that out.
That is my visual.
Get the knife out and
It looks too low.
if you can take it out, open the knife.
I think this is.
That's the newest one.
Raise it by
And they
3
actually did
inches.
a lock blade on the stupid thing.
Just raise the painting
Well,
3 inches.
there's a concept, there's
No, that's more than 3 inches.
Okay, I got it, Bill. Let me just
But I
take it
can't-
from
All
you.
you need to do is raise the painting 3 inches.
Yeah, well, he has to take this out.
But we don't know whether 3 inches is the right.
You guys need to do wallpaper together. Really?
Right.
I think the first
That's
wall,
too
I
high.
call the attorney and too high.
That's 3 inches, that's too much.
Too
Once you get the kitchen done, it's not that
Down a
bad.
little more. Right there.
Hello, my name is Don Schwartz. Welcome to my studio. In this video, I will demonstrate the technique which I use for painting a horse head portrait. A little bit about my background. I attended Art Center School of Design in Los Angeles as a product major, and I was a member of the American Academy of Equine Artists, and I won Best of Show at Camden, South Carolina for a piece of my work. I have painted numerous paintings over the years of horses in all different poses and techniques. I have many oil paintings in private collections. I have 4 oils at Santa Anita Race Track in Arcadia, California. And I've done work for Bill Shatner and Leslie Nielsen and Desi Arnaz a long time ago. And let's see, Dick Van Dyke's daughter, I did a portrait for her, and just many others, too numerous to remember. To start off with, I'd like to describe the materials I will be using in this painting, or for this painting. The brushes that I will be using, and you may have your own choice of brushes, but for this painting, I use a number 14 bright bristle brush, a number 10 flat bristle brush, and number 8 filbert bristle brush. That's hard to say, isn't it, sometimes? And a round bristle brush. And then we get into the sable brushes, which but I will put a little bit of highlight up there. Yeah, that's better. But here again, you could work a horse forever. I have. But you want to know when to stop again. Main thing is be as critical as you can, but do the best you can and save your old work, and then I think you'll be happy to see how you progress. I know I've been doing it for a long time, and you sometimes get discouraged, but that's not, I think every artist gets discouraged.
I'm Reverend Dr. Eugene Filar. Gene, normally,
Eugene when I've done something wrong, Dr. Lar when I really gotta watch out. I was born in 1927 in Woodward, Oklahoma, and we left very quickly. I learned that was not the place to grow up. So we came to California when I was about 7 years old. We moved in next door to a full professor at the Venice State College, and he kind of molded me. By the time I was 10, I was reading textbooks on theoretical mathematics and theoretical astronomy, much to the chagrin of the libraries, because they didn't understand why I was checking those books out. Certainly they didn't have many interesting pictures in them. But it fascinated me. I went through Nazarene, of course, like I said, Southern Baptist, exposure back in Oklahoma. Then I tried Catholicism, Protestantism, and found all of it missing a couple things. When I was just a little bitty squirt, I used to lay out on the wheat fields and look up at the sky at night. That's when the sky was pitch black and you could see stars clear to the end of the world. And I knew that they didn't come to an end. The idea that I could reach out there and there would be a place where there were no stars was just totally outside my realm of imagination. So when I started asking the wrong kind of questions in every one of these religions, of the priest and the Catholicism circle, I was very quickly told you're not supposed to ask those kind of questions. If it was yours to know, God would have made you know. Well, I bought that like you would buy a dead frog, and decided something else was going on. Then about, it must have been about 11 years old, a new group moved in. They were Oriental. This was just before World War II, so it was kind of a sticky little area. But they were Buddhists. And I remember the first time that I went to visit and walked into the front room, and here in the corner was a Buddhist shrine, all done in beautiful black and red wood with gold interior, and a standing figure of Gautama the Buddha with his hand up like this, signifying silence. I was fascinated, of course. I mean, what kid would not be with gold and the secret chamber, and you know, the mind was rampant. I had just gone through Fu Manchu, the lightning, the mummy's tomb, the curse of the mummy, and all that. So the mind is open and ready, for anything. But then Georgie introduced me to it and started talking to his dad on weekends. And he very quickly showed me some concepts that were right along with what I'd always felt was right. And so I was a Buddhist up until about the age of 17. And from that, well, let's see, let's back up. I'm going too fast. Became a Buddhist about 14, enlisted in the Navy in 1944. I enlisted in the Navy because everybody else in my high school was in the services, and I was darn near the only man in the whole darn campus. And some of the women were strange. So I enlisted in the Navy. I thought maybe I could get in the Navy and wouldn't have to shoot anybody, or at least if I had to shoot them, they'd be thrown the other side of the horizon so I wouldn't see where the big shell landed. As it turned out, I got into code and secret work and didn't have to shoot anyone, as it turned out. Then back into college in 1947, 48, 49, 50. In 1949, I left Pasadena City College and went to the California Institute of Technology, where I served as preparator of invertebrate paleontology. And with the work that I did there from the Institute of Advanced Studies, got my first degree in micropaleontology. I went on to get a master's in biology and astronomy. By this time, after being in the Navy and coming out and getting back into the service, I had a whole different outlook on classes. Any day I didn't learn something, I thought was a total failure. And so when I got home from class at either place, either university, if I couldn't sit there and think of something that made me say, wow, that's neat, I would dive into reading textbooks, encyclopedias, theoretical physics, of course philosophy, until I ran across something that made that day special. And then I was content. Well, this guided me for a long time. When I really got back into college seriously, I wanted to be a doctor of science. This is the equivalent of a PhD in 5 sciences. The last one to obtain that degree was Dr. William Beebe. And by the time I was getting ready to do my doctorate in astronomy, astrophysics, the degree was no longer offered. And so I was heartbroken and decided, well, I could be a perpetual student, but that does not put bread on the table. So somewhere along the way, even though we think most esoteric thoughts, when the tummy growls loud enough, you think about something other than a big one. I met Reverend Jean Bradley, 1948. Of all the people that I have ever loved and been close to, she changed my life more than any human being on the face of the planet. I was a Buddhist, and Mother had seen in the newspaper that they were going to have a reading night at her little church, St. Michael's Spiritual Church. She was a black woman, or a Negro. Incidentally, she hated the term black. She said, I am a Negress and I am damn proud of it. And hence she was not really liked by many of the black people in the area because she would not stand up for their cause. She told them to stop talking about it, go better your own life. And therefore she was not always liked that way. But she was a fantastic woman, the finest medium I've ever seen, the finest teacher I think I bumped into, the finest psychic without question. Well, Mother had seen this ad, so we went to see the place, and it was interesting. Her church turned out to be the quiet room of a mortuary. And so here, a group about half the size of this, about like this one set of pews here, with a strange arch over here, with a drape over it. And everybody speculating, is anybody over there? And we were laughing about the whole thing under our breath. And Reverend Bradley came in, introduced herself. She said, yes, there's a body over there, his name is so-and-so, but he's not going to bother you at all. Well, half of the room turned chalk white and went from there. But she did a thing called psychometry, where she passed a tray around and everybody who wanted reading put an article on the tray. I put a magnifying glass. I was at Caltech at the time, so I put a magnifying glass I was wearing around my neck. And she was giving reading to do. She'd pick up an item and hold it, and say, okay, this, and that. She came to mine, and she was spinning it around on her finger, which scared me. I had visions of going over there and smash. But she was spinning around, and she spun it up and caught it right in her hand. Pointed right straight at me in the group of about 60, maybe 65 people. And she said, young man, don't you give up on Christianity. You haven't heard the real story. Well, that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I thought, whoops, what's this old gal up to? And then she proceeded to not only tell me what I was doing, but what I was going to be doing. And I thought, oh yeah, listen to the wind blow. But I got to thinking about it. So she touched Mom and gave her a reading, and a friend that went with us and gave her a reading, and they were right on. So I thought, well, the only thing I can think of is that she's reading our thoughts. And if she can teach me to read thoughts, that's worth doing. So of course the next week we went back to the next service. So I was going to fool her. So this time I put a watch on the tray instead of my magnifying glass. She picked up the watch, looked straight at me. She said, yeah, you're the one. I want you in class next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Put my watch down, that was it. I was in class, and I studied with her for the next almost 12 years. She was an incredible woman. I run the chapel, and our staff runs the chapel here in an extremely relaxed mode. If Reverend Bradley was head of this, first of all, she'd have you all scared to death. But she would stand at the front door, and if she gave an assignment, like a written, she loved to give us assignments in the Bible, because she was very Christian-oriented. And it usually involved 3 or 4 pages of written material. And so she would stand at the door, and if you did not bring the pages and hand them to her as you came in the door, you went home. I don't care where. The only excuse she would use is if you were laying almost comatose in a hospital. She would honor that, okay, maybe you couldn't control that, but you're supposed to control everything else. And this was in Pasadena, and she had students living in Long Beach, and I've seen her send them home, 40 miles away, and no questions. Where's your homework? I'll see you next week. Period. End of discussion. So she was a monster, but she was a wonderful monster. She taught us a lot of things. I taught her a few things. Meditation, of course, I had been doing for many, many years, and to a very high degree of stillness. So that first night she asked us all to meditate. So I sat down, crossed my legs, folded my hands in a meditation pose, and just simply started turning off things. Suddenly I felt her shaking me. She says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm meditating." And she said, "I told you to meditate, not leave." So she had seen my trick simply folding into myself, and she knew what was going on. We had extensive fights about sitting cross-legged, that this crossed your current flows of your energy, and that was good. And I reminded her that several 100 million people sit cross-legged in meditation and communication every year, all the time, every day, in Southeast Asia. And so I gave a few inches, and she gave a few inches, and we became very, very close. She was a real trip. Then as time went on, I found we had to have more money. You cannot live on love, you cannot live on spiritual energy. So in 1959, I moved to Denver, Colorado to open a research lab, LAR Optics and Electronics up there. Did some wonderful things, had a ball, spoiled rotten. The only jobs I did were jobs I wanted to do. And if it didn't look like it would be interesting, I just simply said no and didn't pull the contract. I only got in trouble once. The job involved the little filters, 5,000 little filters. No one in their right mind wants to make 5,000 little filters. And so I thought, well, okay. And so I figured about what it would cost, and I quadrupled it and bid it and got the job. Never saw so many damn little filters in my life. But we did the job, and we made a whale of a profit from it. And it worked out fine. But we specialized, and I did an awful lot of beautiful things. We've got sapphire lenses and windows in the Pegasus satellites, the big weather satellites that are all around the Earth. We did the optics that are on Mars that we use to search for life. We did all the solar stuff for the high-altitude research firms. We developed several techniques for making optics out of very rare materials, and it put us in very good position. But then I tried to do too much, burning the candle at all 8 ends. And so in 1965, my body tried to kill myself. I had 2 heart attacks and a stroke. My total right side was completely paralyzed. And this was just after Christmas in '65. And I was sitting in the doctor's office, and he looked at me very bluntly. He said, "Gene, if you want to live until next Christmas, leave Denver." He said, "You don't know how to run a business and leave the problems at the office." And he's very right. Many, many, many times I would go home from the office and pace the floor thinking about this contract, that contract, fighting with the government. They're an interesting group. But I didn't want to let go of it, and so I quit and decided I would come down here and do something else. And it's interesting. Way back, it must have been about 1956 or 7, Reverend Bradley said, "I see you making great big mirrors, this big around." And I said, "No, Reverend Bradley, I'm not going to get into that work." I had done some work at Don Howell and Sherburne, the optical group of Don Howell. I didn't like that especially. She said, "Yeah, you're going to be doing that, it's going to be great." No. And one afternoon I was standing in my big building up at Optics, and sitting in front of me on a big grinding machine was a 46-inch mirror. That big around, turning around and grinding. And I thought of her and thought, oh. And that was probably 3 years, and she was that accurate. She always wanted to ordain me, because she said, someday you're going to have a church, and you're going to have a lot of people, and you're going to have to do all kinds of things. And she said, "You remember what I tell you?" "No, Reverend Bradley, I'm going to go into research. I haven't got time for that." Well, here we are. A few years late, but she was right on. As I say, I retired in '66, moved down here in '69, when it was still a beautiful farm community. There weren't so many houses everywhere. We lived out in Libby High, halfway up on the side of a hill. We were the only house out there. Our friends were quail, and pheasants, skunks, and all kinds of little wild animals. Now it's people, cars, houses, horrible sounds. In the good old days, when Lake Valserino was still a lake before it broke, our loudest noise out there were frogs croaking down the lake. But now, of course, it's the rumble of the freeway 5 miles away. Incredible. I mentioned to you that I was a Buddhist. While I was in the Navy, I had the opportunity to study at a big Buddhist retreat on the little island of Oahu in the Hawaiian chain. I was first over there in 45. That place has changed. You can imagine Hawaii in 45, you can imagine a real paradise, not the huge commercial thing that you see today. But that's kind of an interesting thing, and since I've been talking about how you start these things, I got the liberty to just simply take some time off. I'd gone through some rather upsetting things and didn't particularly care to work. And since I was in code work, we were spoiled brats. We could get off quite easily and go different places. And I was walking up in the foothills of the Poi Poi, which is up on the Pali. And I'd been walking along a white wall for, seemed like to me, a block or two. And suddenly a little gate opened. And here was a priest in yellow robes. And he bowed and he said, the master would like to talk to you. And I thought, and so I thought, well, okay. So I stepped in, and I stepped into the most gorgeous, tranquil garden of a Mahayana Buddhist center you have ever seen. All the beautiful plants and trees, little shrines, several larger complex buildings that were temples and students' quarters. I met the abbot. He said, I think it'd be most appropriate if you would study with us for a few weeks. And I said, oh, gee, I don't know if I have the time. He said, you don't have to report back to the base for 30 days. So then you very quickly decide, okay, don't lie to this man. Something else is going on. And so I studied meditation and a number of other things there at the temple. And that's what gave me an enormous start when I started opening my own psychic sensitivity. You must learn to still your mind. If you can stop thinking so that you can tell when Spirit is giving you something, energies, let's say, from the other side, or if it's coming from your own imagination. And it's extremely important that you know the difference. So I had a head start. So when I bumped into Reverend Bradley and started to do meditation like she asked, it surprised her with what I was doing.
We're looking at a sneaky-eyed dog. Here she sees Jean. Okay, hurry up. Come on, go get Jean. Oh, who is that? Is that Jean? Well, you gonna go see it? Oh, you're waiting for Sue. Waiting for Sue? Oh, look at that. Here's our planaria. And there is Eugene C. Here he comes. Here he comes through the yard. Hello, Eugene C.
Hi-ho. Why am I on television?
I don't know.
Did you see the pretty flowers?
Yeah. How are you?
I got her motor mount.
Here's Susie. Susie 4, playing with her ball. She just loves that ball. She has more fun with it. She's just fun to watch because she's so graceful. Get it, Susie. Get it.
What do you want? Stay down.
This is chew-bone time.
Okay.
Oh,
One for Sue.
oh wow,
Look
Look what the doggy's got. Susie, look what the doggy's got. They're not prancing like they should.
And you can see what it's done in these years. And this, of course, had 5. And so it grew in 5 or 6 years. And each year it's being grown.
That's incredible.
It's just, it's a unique bamboo form.
Talking about the bamboo. There is Eugene C.
Moving pictures.
Eugene C. just completed this bird here.
All right.
Isn't that bird scrumptious looking?
Pretty good bird. These classes, of course, have been going on for some time. We've been doing this now for 17 years. We've had thousands of students go through these classes, and it's been extremely rewarding to me personally to get cards and letters from students from all over the world. And they will make a comment like, thank God for the chapel, or I will never forget some of the things I learned at the chapel. So even if you're not interested excuse me, in becoming a minister or a healer or a message bearer, a medium, there's a lot of information here to simply allow you to have a happier life. And I think that is extremely important. And with a little training, let me be truthful, with a lot of diligent training, I can teach you to reach all of those levels at mental command.
We have in attendance the celebrated dragonfly specialist from the Devonian period?
Pennsylvania.
Oh, Pennsylvania period. Now, his entity, Rod, was showing him a 20-inch span dragonfly and the mechanism of what made it work and so forth. Now, Dr. Lahr, would you please describe this dragonfly that Rod was showing you, please?
Okay, well, first of all, it looked very much like our dragonflies of today. Only wingspan was about this big. Each wing was about 5 inches wide. Its body was blue, had big bulging eyes that had gold glints to them. He had it flying. He showed it flying. And then pointed out that the secret to their flight, and the mistake that all ornithopter model builders are making, is that the wing is not a homogeneous piece that does this, but is very stiff in the front. And if you look at the wing of any Hymenoptera, you'll see that it has a solid rib up front, and then various patterns of little ribs made of hard tissue that are used for classification. They're used to name the species. But more importantly, the diameter of the little stiffening vein that was there determines which part of the wing turns in what way on an upstroke and on a downstroke. So that, as I say, it's not just like this wing simply doing this. The front edge is going pretty well straight up and down, but the wing itself is going through all kinds of flexes like that as the air spills off of it on the upstroke and as the air is captured under it on the downstroke. And it is the genetic blueprint made by the genetic complex of the dragonfly that was selective, because the better the male dragonfly could fly and catch up with the female, the more of them mated and had baby dragonflies.
Wow.
So as we see the wing of a fossil dragonfly, it's not nearly as complex as the wing we see on a dragonfly today. So that while the dragonfly of the Pennsylvanian could fly, of course, but he couldn't hover and fly like our dragonflies today. So to make the ornithopter that would fly that, incidentally, the two wings fly opposite each other.
Yeah, one goes down, one goes up.
They do this. If this is the front end,
Yeah.
they do this. And so he said to take a good picture of a dragonfly wing, blow it up to the size you want to make it, and then measure very precisely how much bend there is on these different veins that are now hollow tubes. They were filled with blood to fill up the wing, but they are now like structures on a wing.
Yeah, but how do you compare them since they're more tightly knit than they were in those days?
Well, no, let's enlarge a wing of today's insect.
You know, we could also make the ribs spaced proportionally out towards the tip
No,
so that there's
It's
more
not that,
flex.
It's not that simple.
Oh.
So you've got to look at in other words, the web structure in the wing of a dragonfly is not an identification factor, but is a factor of how well he flies. And this is why damselflies, which are simpler, fly by just kind of a fluttering technique with all four wings going, where the dragonfly moves his wings a relatively very small amount and can hover right in the air. And the secret to it, of course, is light. But let's look at those structures very carefully.
Yeah.
Probably what would be...
Well, we could probably measure them by flexing them.
Let's take one and have him aluminized.
We have one. I have one
And
downstairs.
shine light on the aluminum surface and beat it and see what the light pattern does on the ceiling. In other words, how much does, on the upsweep, how much down does this go? On the downsweep, how much down does it go? Does it catch air underneath it? Or does it spill air off in various areas? They've got to be looked at very carefully. So much report from the Pennsylvania forests of giant dragonflies.
We thank you, Dr. Lahr, for this expertise on what period?
The Pennsylvania
Pennsylvania
giant dragonflies.
dragonfly.
So now the proof in the pudding is making one that works.
And we will attempt to do this,
Yes.
and we will have a hovering dragonfly.
Yes.
Signing off
Okay.
in the name of Eugene C. and Donald R.
Good.
Bye.